We have Mr. Garber on Zoom. Mr. Vogelmuth is not going to be here.
Mr.
Others?
Barris is here. He'll be in shortly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and everyone else is here. Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You want to do that? Okay,
Mrs. Johnson, I have a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 4A, policy 005. There are some technical revisions to that policy that are not yet ready. So I'd like to amend the agenda to remove 005 from consideration.
do we have a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what the reason is for that?
We're just going to pull it off and push it to next month.
Okay,
Yeah.
again, the reason, I understand the
The
move.
reason for it is there are some substantive changes recommended by PSBA, and the footnotes that purport to justify those changes don't work. So it's unclear whether these changes are at the behest of PSBA, in which case we can follow them or not follow them, that's up to us, or whether they're pursuant to a directive from the General Assembly, in which case we have to follow them. And since we don't know that yet, and since there's, according to Dr. Musser, no urgency with this policy, my recommendation would be just to delay it by a month.
There is no urgency. The policy overall is a lot of spring cleaning policies, as you can tell, before we get back into the finance side of things. But it is part of the package that the board pays for through PSBA to have those notations done for them. So I want to make sure, since we're not in a hurry to get it through, that they're the correct ones that go with the changes, and the board can make an informed decision.
Got it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Understood. Thank you.
All in favor? Mr. Garber? See, can you hear us? Oh, he. Okay, we can move on, right? Yep. Okay. Motion passed. Six, nothing. 6-0. Six. Yeah, 6. Okay. That's all we need to do before we go to the residents, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we have residents' request to speak.
Yes, we have 2 this evening. The first is Faye Skaya.
Can you hear me? Good evening, good evening, good evening. There we go. Short problems. Good evening. I'm anxious to hear the update tonight on full-day kindergarten for our district. Honestly, I'm still shocked that Hempfield is still part of only 15% of districts in the Commonwealth that does not have full-day kindergarten for everyone. In fact, 2 more districts in our county alone have voted to implement it just since December. Since there seemed to be a consensus around adding 1 extended day class at each building, I'm assuming the update tonight will focus on that option. But I'm here tonight to urge you to dig deeper and look at more creative ways to be able to implement it for the entire district. Yes, space and costs are limiting factors, but working through those barriers will have a profound impact on our district in so many ways. Full-day kindergarten is a wise investment. It allows kids to further develop cognitive, physical, social, and emotional skills, such as problem solving and making friends. Academically, we are letting our children start out already behind their peers across the Commonwealth because we keep saying we need to do this, but we haven't made it a priority. Unfortunately, each year our test scores bear out where we are not where we need to be. Additionally, families moving into our area may be choosing nearby districts on this issue alone. If there's space to do it in every building except LPC, then let's get creative and look at optimizing space in nearby buildings like LIC do what we need to do to make this work. On the financial side, based on the numbers that were presented in January, we're talking about spending around $400,000 to $600,000 on just 60 students to have extended day, which comes out to about $10,000 a student, versus 1.2 million for about 500 kindergartners to be full day, which comes out to about 2,500 a student. Based on registration and timing of various things, I understand it may not be feasible now to implement this fall, but I urge you to put a line in the sand to start planning now so that full-day kindergarten can be implemented in the 26-27 school year. We should, this should be something that we can all agree on is a good investment for both our kids and our money. Thank you.
And our second speaker is Mekkai Williams.
Good evening. My name is Mekkai Williams, and I'm a proud 2022 graduate of Hempfield. I'm a former student council member and the vice president of my graduating class. I come before you tonight as a proud alum and someone whose life was forever shaped by a decision that was made 15 years ago. I was one of the lucky ones, and I mean lucky, to be selected for Hempfield's extended day kindergarten program when I was 5 years old. That extra time in the classroom gave me an early foundation that I have carried with me ever since. It helped me grow academically, emotionally, and socially in ways that I only came to fully appreciate years later. So I want to start by recognizing and truly appreciating the step this board is considering tonight, the expansion of the extended day kindergarten program to every elementary school in the district. This is a meaningful improvement, and it will undoubtedly help more students. But I also need to say this cannot be the finish line. Expanding extended day kindergarten is a good step forward, but it is not full day kindergarten. It still only means that some children, based on a selection process, will get the benefit of additional time in the classroom. It still means that luck plays a role in determining who gets that head start. And it still means that we are part of only 15% of school districts in Pennsylvania that do not offer full day kindergarten. That is a fact that we cannot ignore. Across Pennsylvania, district after district has recognized that full day kindergarten is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It strengthens early literacy, boosts long-term academic performance, and supports emotional and social development. It gives children the tools they need before they fall behind, reducing the need for costly interventions later on. And just as importantly, it provides families with consistency and stability, ensuring that no child's educational experience is determined by circumstance. I am grateful for the progress being made tonight, but I urge this board, do not let this be the final step. Do not lose sight of the ultimate goal. While this expansion will help more students, it still leaves too many without access to the benefits of a full day program. Every 5-year-old in Hempfield deserves the same opportunities, the same time to learn and grow, the same strong start. We have the chance to be bold, to not just keep up with other districts, but to lead, to show our commitment to every child, not just the lucky ones. So tonight, I urge you to support this expansion, but don't stop here. Keep pushing forward, keep working toward a future where all of our kindergartners get the time, the education, and the opportunities they deserve, because no child's future should come down to luck. And one of my kindergarten teachers is here today, Mrs. Saparetti, and I want to publicly thank you for the impact that you have had on my life. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers in supporting the direction we're heading. Maybe not as fast as what you want, but we're getting there. Growth is always a challenge, and we're ready to meet that challenge
Johnston,
at this point.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay,
Yeah.
can you hear me now? I actually thought I was very close to it. So do I need to repeat what I said?
No, I can hear most of it. I can hear you now. You're too far back from the mic.
Okay. I needed my Army voice, I guess, or my teacher voice, maybe that. So Dr. Dandridge, you have a presentation for us.
All right, thank you, everyone. I am here this evening to give an update on our progress towards full-day kindergarten. 2 months ago in January, we presented a couple different options and received some great support from the board. This is a twofold conversation you'll see this evening. One is what we know that we can accomplish for next year, and that was part of that option 3 recommendation that we gave. But I also wanted to dig in a little bit more, show some of the work we've done over the past 2 months on how we can move forward as a district towards full-day kindergarten for all, hearing that that was one of the directions that the board wanted to see. So just a quick refresher on where we ended the conversation in January. If you remember this slide, this is where our current classrooms are, kindergarten classrooms are at Hempfield. The 2 diagnostic kindergarten classrooms, special ed classrooms are not represented on this chart, but all the half-day and EDK classrooms are. We have 13 teachers across the district currently. We have 2 EDK classrooms at Centerville Elementary School, which are students who are selected by our kindergarten screeners. And that gives us 30 students. They're capped at 15 each, so 30 students there. And then all the other half-day classes across the district are capped at 25. I'd say the average class size is a little under 20 currently. So what we had presented in the direction that we would like to move short-term for next year is that option 3. That option, as a reminder, was 1 EDK classroom in each of our elementary buildings, the 6 elementary buildings. So that would give us a total of 6 EDK classrooms. It would provide targeted EDK in every home building. As we know, that's one of the barriers to families accepting the EDK placement in the past. We would continue those caps of 15 students for the EDK classroom and the 25 students on the half-day kindergarten classrooms. In order to do this, I presented in January, it would take 1 or 2 additional teachers, depending on enrollment, 5 additional support staff. So it's somewhere in the ballpark of $500,000. We also would have to overcome transportation costs, which would rise by approximately $60,000. That would be an additional bus run in some of our attendance areas. And we would need approximately $15,000 to $30,000 in curricular supplies. So those were the cost barriers, and we'll be talking about each of those in a little bit more depth in a moment. As a reminder about option 3, some of the benefits that we saw is that support services would be more equitable as they would be split evenly among the 6 buildings rather than putting 4 of them at Centerville, which was another one of the options. Students, because they're in their home building, would have an easier transition from EDK to first grade because they're already familiar with the building. They would not lose instructional time being transported or shuttled to another building and back, as our current EDK program has. We would increase from 30 to 90 students receiving EDK. We know we have the physical space for it that we can move into for next year, and we have the scheduling space for this in this proposal. We will have to work with our kindergarten staff because it will require some movement, but it is a realistic plan and an option. All right, so exploring that in a little more depth, we were able to get some more accurate, hopefully, enrollment projections. The current projections for next year are 385 students, and that's, again, taking out the diagnostic A students. That's down about 12. We were at 397 this past year. So slight dip in enrollment there. Given that projection and working off of those numbers, which is what we'll do this evening, we can implement option 3 with 14 teachers and 6 EDK aides. Those are the support staff supporting those classrooms. Currently, as you saw on that first slide, we had 13 teachers and 1 EDK aide. So in order to implement option 3, we would need 1 additional teacher and 5 additional aides in order to make that happen for next year.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would that require the aides to travel between buildings?
No.
No.
So we are proposing in this option 1 EDK aide in each classroom. So 6 total. We have 1 currently, so that's why we need to expand by 5, right? So they would support the building. So given those projections, I have a slide that will show you what that would look like. Again, this is all based on the projections Over the summer, as we get more accurate enrollment counts, if we have bubbles in other buildings, we could move staff around. But right now, that would be one EDK in each building. Those are all the gold or yellow classrooms on the right-hand side of the graphic. Each building would have one AM/PM pairing. LPC would have 2 pairings, and then there would be one at Centerville and Mountville teacher who would travel between 2 buildings. Currently, we have 1 teacher that travels between Centerville and East Pete. Given our projections, we think that would be Centerville, Mountville that would have the traveling teacher for next year. As you can see, given those projections, we're doing that with 14 teachers there, right? So that's the expansion by 1, as well as the additional support staff there. One of the asks of the board was to talk a little bit more about how we could fund that expansion, how are we going to pay for it. So as we dug into the numbers, this current year, we have 5 retirements in the elementary. We know that expanding full-day kindergarten is one of the acceptable uses of the Ready to Learn adequacy funds. And we do know from the state that some of those funds have been built in for next year already. So it's not in addition, and it's not something that we're hoping to get. We know those funds will be there. Full-day kindergarten is an acceptable use of those funds. We also know that based on the enrollment projections, we're actually down in the elementary next year. And it looks like about 5 sections currently would be down across the elementary schools. Given those numbers, we can repurpose 3 of those positions to expand kindergarten. That would give us the 1 teacher, and then 5 aides is about 2 teachers. So if we take the dollars there from 3 of those positions, we can get all the positions staffing wise that we need to implement option 3 without adding any additional positions to the budget for next year. And that's the most important piece for us. How could we do this with our current constraints, right? And we will talk a little bit more as we expand this conversation to bring full-day kindergarten to all students. We're obviously going to need to add more positions, and I'll show you some of those costs. But we know that with our current budget projections, we would not have to ask the board for any additional positions in order to implement this. The other 2 items, yeah.
Dr. Dandridge, this is very helpful information. My only question is, the adequacy funds are they're a little bit like ESSR funds, right? It's not forever money.
Right.
And do we risk some sort of fiscal cliff if we start to rely on these funds now?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Marissa might have more detail. Some of these funds we've been told have been built into the base already, and therefore we see that commitment sustaining long term. There may be additional funds that come along. Last year, we had more than what is being proposed in the base for next year. We might get more, and we could use those funds to expand kindergarten or other programs across the district. But we're pretty confident with the funds that we're talking about here. Those have been committed to the base.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. So the other 2 items that we said are going to cost us more are the transportation costs and the instructional supplies. So again, those transportation costs we can offset with the Ready to Learn adequacy funds there. It's approximately an additional bus for what we need to do next year. So we can use those funds for that. And in terms of instructional supplies, I estimated about $15,000 per staff member. We actually, since we were using up our ESSER 3 funds this past year by September, we were actually able to purchase a lot of funds that we had originally thought we were going to pay for out of the curriculum budget. That meant that we had some extra funds here at the end of the year available to us. So Mr. Hoffman was able to go in and purchase the supplies that we would need for an additional kindergarten classroom for next year, given this year's funds. So again, nothing additional to add. That also allowed us to reduce some of those curricular budgets for next year as well. So all 3 of those areas which had some dollar amounts attached to them, as we went back and kind of sharpened the pencils and looked for where it might come from, we were able to find in our current budget.
Dr. Dandridge, could you, I'm not talking. I think I was absent for the meeting when you did initial. Could you just, is option 3 like something to bridge between where we're at and full
Yep.
day?
Yeah, so this is a step forward for us.
Okay.
Some of the limitations to go to full day for all were about our facility use, which I'm going to be getting to in just a moment.
Okay.
But this is a step forward for us. Moves, currently we have 30 students receiving that EDK full day experience. This option 3 would get us to 90 students
Okay.
to be able to receive
Gotcha.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. So that is what I feel that we can absolutely move forward with next year confidently. And we're able to look at within terms of what we already have budgeted. I do want to expand a little bit on.
How many total kindergarten students? That's 30 to 90, but how many total kindergarten students?
So it was 385 is
Okay.
our projection for next year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have another question. Remind me, our kindergarten teachers now that are doing the half day, each classroom has one aide?
Not our half-day kindergartens, our EDK classrooms have,
The EDK
there's 2 of
does.
them and they split an aide currently. Because we'd be putting one EDK in each home building and didn't want to have the aides traveling, we
Right.
were proposing one for each of the EDK classrooms.
So our
That's all.
kindergarten teachers, even though they teach half day twice
Correct,
and they don't have an aide.
correct.
There's no aides and my bad for not knowing
Not
this,
for
or I
the-
would have
not-
been saying, why not?
Correct, not for the kindergarten classrooms. I mean, we have building aides that support the building as a whole, but not specifically
Right.
for those classrooms.
And I realize this is really late in the game and I'm just now catching up.
It's
They have 25 kids. I thought the cap was 21.
25 for our kindergartens, usually between 15 and 25. Our average is a little under 20, and that's probably fluctuated a little bit over the
Mhm.
years. But currently our district-wide, our classrooms are averaging a little under 20. For the half-day classrooms, the cap on the EDK is the 15.
Okay, again, my bad. Why don't we have aides? Why don't we have aides for the kindergarten teachers, not the floaters?
Part of it is just the financial makeup of our staff right now and where we have our support across the district. But those have, like our other grade level classrooms, we have not had dedicated aides to those classrooms. We've primarily had them stationed in the classrooms that have additional support needs and might need additional hands in there. We certainly, especially in those classrooms, have a lot of parent volunteers. You will see a lot of adults in
Sure.
those classrooms.
Mhm.
But in terms of district resources, that is not something we've traditionally done.
I think there's also a piece too, I mean, it's 100% financial. When you look at the number of aides we would need,
Right.
cost, salary, benefits, et cetera. The other part is, and with us being able to hopefully move down this piece, is we're gonna look out to the community to say, please help us get the word out that we'll be looking for great instructional assistants to come in and support in those classrooms. So
And
that's
they're hard to
the important
find.
piece of
Yeah.
trying to do some of that
Mhm.
recruiting as well.
And I would say, if I'm understanding it correctly, this is a step up because right now the EDK classrooms share one aide. So
Yeah.
getting one dedicated aide per classroom versus one aide split between 2 is a step in the right direction. And then maybe we
Yes.
can go to,
It is a step in the right direction. The other part of the conversation is having a full-time aide in those EDK classrooms. We know they're going to be able to provide some of their support
See
to the
how-
half-day classrooms
Correct.
Yeah.
because they're stationed in that building as well. Again, it's not an aide per classroom, but it gives us a little bit more than we currently have.
I guess I'm outdated and we lived different places when my kids were in kindergarten. They always had an aide and I guess I should never assume.
Yeah.
So 25 kids in the full day kindergarten. Is that the recommended average of kids? I thought our K through 2, the number of kids in the class was 21 and then it didn't go up to like 25 until
Yeah.
3rd and 4th grade.
I mean, we strive hard to have a cut point because we need something black and white to make sure that we can justify when we need additional classrooms. 25 is the number we've used in the past. I know over the past year across the IU, we've done some studies in terms of where those caps are in other classrooms. Hempfield average class sizes in kindergarten are on the low side compared to some of our neighbors in the other IU districts.
Well, I'm also thinking back to one of our points that we were making is we want to make sure that our kids are prepared.
Absolutely.
Kindergarten is the place to make sure they get a good, strong start and then moving up through. So we want all the support there we can muster for those kids.
We know how important that foundation is. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
All right, thank you.
So let me expand to the second part of this conversation, which is a little bit more about full day kindergarten for all. That clearly was heard is a goal around the table. We feel the urgency. Obviously, you're going to hear, it's not a surprise. Our buildings were not built to have full day kindergarten classrooms for all Hempfield students. So we have to overcome that limitation. But let me try and quantify it a little bit, talk about some of the conversations we've had, and share some of the challenges with each of those options. So taking you back to January, I had presented option one, which was full day for all. I said we'd need 19 classrooms, and that was the bare minimum. Get everyone in the door, pack them with 25 per classroom. We lost our EDK option in option one. It was really the bare minimum in order to get all students to Hempfield. I've been asked about that proposal a couple times since the presentation and whether or not that's a recommendation I would have. I personally would not. I wanted to show you what the bare minimum was, but it's not an option that I would feel comfortable with. At the very least, I believe that we should continue our EDK classrooms in that full day for all option. As we went back and looked at that, in order to be able to keep EDK as well as have full day kindergarten for all, a more realistic number to work with would be 21 classrooms. Okay, that would allow us to preserve the kindergarten screening, still give additional support for the students who are not showing the readiness on the front end, still have the EDK aides supporting those classrooms with a lower cap, but still have a healthy full day kindergarten program for all. So I'm going to use that number here moving forward to share what I believe is a more realistic full day kindergarten setup for Hempfield. So
Can I ask a dumb question? Our kindergarten teachers now teach a morning class and an afternoon class. So they're in essence teaching like a full day. I don't understand why we need 8 more teachers. It just maybe I'm not looking at it.
Because the students only go to half of the day. So one kindergarten teacher who's full-time in kindergarten teaches 2 different classes. And those students are only there for morning,
Okay.
and then they leave, and then a
So
new
we
group of
need
students
twice as many
come.
Teachers.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Twice a day.
Okay.
Yep. So with the premise that with current projections, 21 EDK or full day classrooms would be the realistic ask. What would that cost? Currently, as I said, we have 13 kindergarten teachers. Going to 21 would mean 8 additional teachers. That's approximately $1 million right there. We would still be asking for the EDK classroom, so I would continue to ask for those 5 EDK aides. That's $250,000. The curricular costs for those additional classrooms would be $120,000. And Mr. Frank tells us that transportation would rise to about $200,000. All in, assuming we have the facilities, which will be the next conversation, that price tag would be a little over $1.5 million to expand to full day kindergarten for all. Okay, so that's a price tag that we want to keep in mind in our planning as going forward.
I'm just noticing your footnote on the bottom. Is
Yep.
that price tag in addition to what we would be balancing out for next year?
Thank you for hitting it. If we implement option 3 next year, that reduces that price tag by $450,000 because we're already adding the 1 kindergarten teacher and the 5 additional aides there. So it's going to be closer to $1 million in order to expand to this 21 classrooms.
So we
But
do
if
option
you-
3 first and then do this.
You
It's
got it.
only $1 million. Well, I shouldn't say it's only a lot of money. but
That's
$1
just the
million.
price tag. We'll talk about facilities in just a moment because that's
I
another
understand.
limitation we have to overcome.
But is there the potential, I realize your classroom numbers are down in this coming year, but that those other 5 positions might need to be replaced as years circle forward?
Sure. Enrollment projections are something we look at every year in order how best to use our staff. Potentially, we might be able to reclaim some for other kindergarten classrooms and not add all 8 additional positions to the budget. That really depends on enrollment, and we can look at some of those projections going forward. I just wanted to have a ballpark of what we are looking at price wise.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. All right, so facilities, this is the biggest one, right? Challenge to overcome. So those 21 classrooms is really what we need to look at and get creative on. So to break that down, in this setup that we're proposing, it would mean 4 kindergarten classrooms at Centerville, 3 at East Pete, 3 at Farmdale, 5 at LPC, 4 at Mountville, and 2 at Roarstown.
Can you just tell me how many each one of those have right
Yep.
next to that number?
You're just ahead of me, just a couple bullets below. I'm
Okay.
getting to it.
Okay.
Centerville has the space. We know that we were talking about expanding EDK there. I'm going to be all right at Centerville. No worries. LPC is my challenge, right? I have 4 kindergarten classrooms. One of them is a diagnostic kindergarten classroom. So I really only have 3 currently, and I would need 5. So I'm probably 2 short there, 1 or 2 short there, depending on what we do with that kindergarten classroom. Now the other prototypes, right? So we're talking Mountville, Roarstown, East Pete, and Farmdale. All of our prototype buildings were built to have 2 kindergarten classrooms in that wing. If you walk into any of those buildings, same design, they all have those 2 kindergarten classrooms in that wing right now. So you can see East Pete, Farmdale, Mountville, we're short there, either 1 or 2 classrooms. Roarstown and Centerville are my 2 that I don't have any issues. I feel, we could implement that, no problem, space-wise. Okay?
2.
They all have 2 in that hallway.
So like East Pete would need 1 more, Farmdale would need 1 more,
You got it?
Mountville would need 2 more.
Correct.
Do we have those classrooms somewhere else in the building, even if they need to go upstairs?
Next slide.
Okay.
All right. So what are some of the options?
I should have brought the Post-it notes.
I know.
I thought about
We
it.
talked about it. Hold the questions. We'll get there. No. Yeah, what are the options? How can we be creative? Because
I
that's
can think of
really
one
what-
where there's an open classroom pretty close.
here's what we're looking at, right? And I'll talk about pros and cons of them, right? First of all, can we repurpose or relocate classrooms? Thank you for hitting the next bullet. So we have other classrooms in the building who are not used full-time or used partially, or potentially could move to a different location. Those would be like our science labs, right? Our LG1 space, our gifted classrooms, our STEM labs, and some other programs that are in those hallways. Again, it wouldn't be in the same kindergarten hallway. We would have to look elsewhere in the building for those spaces, but potentially that's how we could get creative. Some of the challenges with some of those spaces, one is you're removing other programs that are already using those space, right? So we have to find other places in the building for those programs to happen. As I've mentioned to several of you, most of those classrooms are not designed kindergarten classrooms, right? So there would be some renovation on the front end, and the biggest challenge there is typically a bathroom. Usually the kindergarten classrooms have a bathroom in those classrooms. A lot of those spaces there are on the 2nd floor right above the kindergarten classroom. If you do not have a bathroom in the classroom and walk them down the hall, you're also pairing with a 6th grade hallway. And now I have kindergarten and 6th grade students in the same bathroom, which is not ideal for any of our buildings. We could look at some internal renovations, right? It doesn't require a building project. Can we build bathrooms into some of those classrooms? And we do have a couple spaces outside of the kindergarten wing that do have bathrooms. They're currently being used for other programs that we might have to move. Some require it, some of it's nice to have. So those are some of the conversations we'd have to have in terms of how we're using those spaces right now.
Before you go to the next, because the next
Ask
is
him.
additional thing. So that would be those schools that need like an additional classroom or 2.
Correct.
Is LPC. Before we get to remote locations, building projects and redistricting, is there room at LIC?
So LIC currently is housing Owl Hill for the 2 classrooms in that wing.
2 classrooms.
Yep, that's that That's that prototype wing,
Okay.
right, of where those classrooms are being held right now. So obviously pre-K is important to us as well. I don't want to kick anyone out. There's also the challenge there of if I'm using two different buildings for kindergarten for the same attendance area, which families get to use which building and some of those conversations.
If I have a fourth grader at LIC on my
I'm
kindergarten.
not saying we won't get
so be-
creative. I'm just saying, what are the conversations
yeah.
we're going to hear if we look at that? And we've certainly, that's a natural one, right? Because they're right next door. Looking at LEC would be a natural conversation, not far away from LPC. Doesn't have a cafeteria or a gym, but we've got some spaces there, right? So some of those kind of locations are really what that second bullet is about remote locations, or if we move outside the buildings, how might we accomplish that? Before I leave the first bullet, though, I do the second part there was moving support classrooms to other buildings. We have several across the district. We have emotional support classrooms, autistic support classrooms. We have IU classrooms because we have fair share responsibilities to them. So some of the conversations that have come up is, can't you just pick those up and move them to another building where you might have more space in order to get more kindergarten classrooms in, say, LPC, right? One of the things that we are very conscious of is not overloading any one building. That's sort of the reasons that we were not looking at expanding at Centerville, to overload the staff and the support services in any one building. Yes, we may be able to do that in pockets. Would I want to do that whole scale and overbalance overburden another school just to accomplish this? No. So it's probably a combination of a couple of these things in order to move it forward. Okay. So the second part, second bullet there is remote locations, right? So some of the challenges to looking at remote locations is if you're moving to a location that doesn't already have some of these additional staff, you would be looking at adding not only kindergarten teachers, but also other specialists like phys ed and music and art and library. So now you're really increasing your staffing costs. You're duplicating the resources needed for equipment, supplies, educational materials when you are moving to a remote location. You lose some operational efficiency and obviously just have an overall implementation cost. It's not ideal. Other places have done it, and it might be something that we have to explore. But those are some of the challenges to looking outside of our current elementary buildings. Certainly, there's always that third bullet of a building project, and we are talking about how much fun a building project is at the high school right now. It's costly and it takes time, right? So it's not a solution that we can say, we're looking at tomorrow or even next year. We're talking years down the road in order to do some of that. And even some of the conversations about adding on to our prototype buildings, which are plans that have been there in the past. Even gaining extra classroom spaces does not take away some of the limitations of putting the additional bodies into our cafeterias or our gyms or the core of those buildings, because they would not be expanded in an addition. You're just adding more classrooms there. So there's definitely a lot of challenges with the third bullet there. And a fourth way that we can accomplish some of this is potentially with redistricting, right? And we've had those conversations in the past that may allow us to balance enrollment across the district, depending on what we are seeing in our projections. But there's a pretty large community impact there and a lot of work that needs to be done before considering any option.
How many square foot per classroom?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
They're full.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Square foot per classroom.
So 660 is the number that's used by the state.
What is it?
660, but for a kindergarten classroom, you want it bigger than that. You want to be up around the 800 plus.
800.
For sure. In my opinion, having taught it.
They're full.
So 7 needed, 600 square feet. Did I do that right? Just a crazy idea. We couldn't put some kindergarten classes in the renovated high school, could we? That wouldn't be practical.
It would add square footage and costs to
Right.
but then you'd have
Doesn't
to
make a lot of sense, though.
You'd
I'm just
wanna-
brainstorming.
Right, you'd want to then have that in a sense separated.
Yes.
And that's, as we've been having some conversations, that is one potential advantage of using the Landisville Education Center next door, because as we build the high school, we're able to move programs over to the high school, and we'd have that, in a sense, facility potentially to use with some minor work. We'd have to work through some of the things like we can handle the cafeteria size. The gym would have to look different. We'd have to figure that out. Music and art things. I'm sorry?
How many square footage is the LEC? Do we know?
Grab that stat.
How many classrooms
It's gonna be-
are over there? About.
Eight-ish?
We need 7. We need 6,000 square feet. Maybe that's an option.
That's what we've been looking at.
So
But again,
just
that
based on
comes with
this
time. because of-
informal conversation around the table, right? You can see why this is not a next year can do right now. I don't, if you ask me right now, my thought, I don't think it's any one bullet up there. I think it's going to be a combination of a couple of these to move us forward. Because some buildings were closer than others. Some, I think realistically, we can get to with very little actual work, just with some minor moves. Some we're going to have to work a little bit harder and get creative. Whether LEC or LIC or something else is the actual solution, I can't tell you today, but I certainly will be bringing back a recommendation as to how we can move towards it, knowing that this is the desire of the board and administration. All right, so what I am asking and sharing, what we would like to do here is proceed with option 3. We have it worked out in the budget. We know where those dollars are coming from. We're not coming to you asking for anything additional for next year to be able to service those other additional students in their home buildings. Kindergarten registration has already begun. We've had orientation in each of the schools. We've been telling families that we are expanding EDK. We'll be back to them in terms of what that looks like, whether it's going to be in home buildings or more at Centerville. But we are scheduling students for screenings, and then we'll be working next steps on invitations, and that'll be part of the conversation there. Principals have been meeting with them throughout this process, are planning on what building usage looks like for option 3 for next year, and scheduling in their building schedule for those EDK classrooms. We would next have to, after this evening, work with kindergarten staff on what those staffing adjustments would look like. And then I'd be working with Ms. Burkholder on communication, both internally with our staff to gain support, but also with our community and with our kindergarten families for next year. So they'd understand, one, we're moving for next year, and then our goals for the future.
And would you say those groups are feeling good about it? Like you started with the principals and
Everyone that we talk to, that when we say
teachers?
expanding full day kindergarten options, are on board and saying, how can we do it faster? So,
Okay.
yeah, we've received very positive feedback so far.
When you say how we can move forward with those next steps for the future,
Mhm.
I know, I realize you don't have a crystal ball and there's a lot of things to work out.
Yep.
But I know families right now are trying to make plans for their lives a year and a half from now already. Is this something that we'd like to get done for the following year? Do you think that's a reasonable goal?
I would love
That can't be
to. So I
promised,
would
but is
say,
reasonable?
so the 2 parts there, right, is the financial commitment from the board, right? So $1 million, $1.5 million, wherever that staffing number, transportation number ends, we would need a commitment in the following year's budget in order to plan for that, right? And administration will work with them if that's the desire of the board. And then the second part is about the facilities, right? And how we overcome that. I believe that, we're going to leave tonight's meeting and go back and have more focused conversations on how can we have that happen in each of the buildings. I'd love to be as optimistic as possible and tell you for sure, we're a year away from it. I can't say that for sure, but I know that we have the urgency to have those conversations and bring them back to you just as quickly as we can.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So my recommendation for that is that we turn that into one of our goals for next year from a planning standpoint, to bring back and kind of outline a time frame and what that looks like, and really evaluate and do the analysis of all of it. Because while there's projections here, we do have to look at additional staff beyond the classroom teacher. What impact would that be from a scheduling standpoint? And it's not just art, music, phys ed, library. It's also looking at our reading specialists. It's looking at our ELD teachers, so speech, language, like all of that needs to be looked at, because you don't then all of a sudden say, okay, yep, we're doing this. And then you still have all these other holes that need to be filled. So we need to look at it
Yeah.
comprehensively. This process and what we've kind of worked through, because these positions are in the budget and projected to still be in the budget, we're just repurposing them. So we just need, in a sense, the support of the board, not a vote, because we're not changing, we're not eliminating or adding new, because everything is still in the budget. And you will ultimately approve the budget come June. But this bigger comprehensive piece, we will need to bring back a plan, and that really should be, in a sense, a recommendation and then approval of the plan, because that's really changing the entire focus of educational programming for our kindergarten students in the future. So that would kind of be the end result when that work is done.
So what do you need from us?
So I just see, as long as there's general consensus here that, yep, option 3, let's keep moving, and then Dr. Dandridge and the team will get moving.
And make it happen.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Bromerski, what, I assume some other local schools in Lancaster County and Lebanon County have done this recently.
Mhm.
Have you had any conversations with superintendents that have done this and found out any ideas from them? And who has done that? What is Lancaster County? How many have full day? And it sounds like Ms. Skaya said we're at one of 15% in the state. Well, how do we look in Lancaster?
So
And-
in Lancaster County, and Dr. Dandridge shared this in prior presentations, it used to be pretty close. It was like a 60-40 split. However, in the last several months, several districts moved to full day for next year. So that split is probably now, we're down to 80-20.
I believe it's somewhere around 15-7 in terms of what the numbers look like.
Okay.
Some of them are not full day implementation. Some are some variety or some hybrid version of it, but somewhere in that ballpark, I would say the trend is certainly moving towards full day versus away. Lancaster's been a little behind the state, but that's and I have talked to several of our colleagues. We were talking to some of them today, the curriculum coordinators. One of the advantages that many districts that are adopting next year have that we don't is facilities. Like they have the space, so they're just overcoming the financial impact of it. So we have that twofold, not only the financial, but also the facilities piece to work through.
Okay.
Are many of those districts keeping something like an EDK in addition to full day, or is it just pushing everyone to full day, which was opposite of your recommendation?
Yeah.
So I know it feels like slower, but maybe we will be ahead in having full day and an EDK really strong program.
I know there are other options out there. I don't know how many are utilizing which ones, but
Okay.
certainly that's a conversation we can have as well.
So just for my clarification, we will continue to have EDK even as we expand
That's the
to
goal.
the full
Correct.
kindergarten.
Correct.
Now, I have another question. The limit now is at 90. What, and I don't know what the cutoff score is. I don't know how you determine that. That's okay. But if you have more students who come in and you're like at 120, what do you do?
So that's so what we do is we screen all the students, right? And then what
Correct.
we do is we might take the 15 most at risk in that building, right? And offer that to them. If one turns us down, we keep that waiting list going and we continue to offer to them. We know by expanding from the 30 that we have now to the 90 next year, everyone who would have gotten an invitation this year will continue to get an invitation, even though we're moving to only 15 per home building. So we know we're going to at least support those currently getting it, but also be able to expand that a bit more because of the additional seats.
Because the goal is always to prepare all of the kindergartners.
Correct? Correct.
Well, yeah. Okay,
100%.
thank you.
No, I've been in support of this from the very beginning. We started doing the committee talks and stuff. I think we're definitely heading in the right direction. I also appreciate the methodical thought process behind it, because the last thing I want to do is just get started and then fall flat in its face, especially with space and everything else. So I appreciate that we're going as methodical and making sure that the foundation is good so we don't crumble. But I think we're definitely heading in the right direction.
I think the other part to remember is we've got to look at balancing those financial needs. Yes, we focus on academic and the needs of our students. If we're embarking on a high school project, priority's got to be there. If we're looking at working to build this in, we want to make sure that the funds that we're using to build it in are able to be sustainable. Somebody mentioned a cliff. We don't want to inherently create one. And so I think trying to take it and really look at what is the true impact. And it may be the case where it's possibly a slower expansion because of space and building, or maybe it can be accelerated if there's additional state money built in year after year in our base that we can dedicate to full day. So I think as we start to see the evolution of what's to come with state funding, I think that will also help kind of specifically for this type of program. And we have already reviewed it, and it will be the main focus of those dollars and of the adequacy dollars that we received last year, built in this year. So that's going to be right out of the gate. And then as we get into future meetings, we talked about science pilot and science programs. We're able to use some of those additional adequacy dollars that are left towards those programs as well. So we are trying to be mindful of the future, but not overloading right out the gate.
By using those adequacy dollars and channeling the majority of it to this kindergarten project, are there other things that will be left unaddressed that normally would be getting those dollars?
So
Am I making sense?
Because it's in a sense, while it's not new money per se, like you have to designate what you're going to spend those dollars on.
Okay.
And then we have to provide the reports to show that we did that.
Yeah.
And so it's not that we're taking from here and putting here. So those dollars that will be used for, in a sense, personnel, that just offsets those personnel costs. And so when we look at other increases in our budget, then those dollars that were in a sense used before from personnel go to that.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, there's only so much money.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to then start to prioritize things like life cycles of equipment and whatnot. Do we need to stretch a year? Can we stretch a year? Do we just go to urgent, for example, as we're talking about the high school? It doesn't make sense to purchase new equipment that are on life cycles if within the next 2 to 3 years, we'll build that in the high school project. But if something were to go, a stove and FCS, it's easy to buy a stove.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to account for multiple, if there's a need for that.
Yeah.
Because I think it was
Mike, I thought in some previous feasibility studies that some of the new elementary schools are easy to add on to, or is that new proposed elementary
No.
schools?
Doug addressed
He addressed
that.
Yep, so we can
Already.
add on
Right.
classes, but the core parts of the building, so if you're adding 4 more classrooms,
support it.
100 students,
Gotcha.
the cafeteria is not going to hold 100 more students. Unless you're going to have lunches starting at 10 a.m. or ending at 2 p.m. Just to kind of get everybody through, and that's not good for kids. So that's some of the challenges with when we look at design, and that's what we want to be mindful with the high school. You need to be able to think about potential future expansion, even though we won't be doing it now. But if the district would need to in the future, it has the ability. So.
Thank you. Richard, you.
I was just gonna say, with like, what Judy said about and also the special ed and stuff, like all this stuff, I don't wanna rush a full day kindergarten and then we lose the reading specialists and things like that affect so many more kids. So I really do, I think everybody has some good points about, let's make sure we do it right instead of check a box.
Yep.
I would agree, do it right, because we want it to be successful. That's the whole point of doing it. And that's the whole point of us being here and having schools, is to get our children educated and do it well. I hesitate to say this because I know it's not a popular opinion. We have a lot of expenses coming with renovations and building and et cetera, and rising costs, just rising expenses. I would hope that somehow we would not let that affect full-day kindergarten. That we would find the money somewhere. Maybe we have to modify some of our programs or modify some of the things we do. I just think it's really important. And you know where I've been on full-day kindergarten, and now I'm like, okay, let's 100%, let's do it. I'm convinced. So I think that needs to be almost number one priority as we're planning our budgets for the future. And I think we can do 2 things at the same time. I think we can do the buildings, what we need to do with the buildings, and I think we can do what we need to do to provide for our youngest students just entering school. And I hope that will be the attitude of the board in the future. So,
Question for Dr. Dandridge. Current half-day kindergarten, do we transport the kids both ways?
Just one way.
Okay, that's why it goes up. Gotcha.
Any, I'm sorry, I was going to wind it up. but
I want
please.
to piggyback on what Mrs. Johnson just said. I agree, as I have learned more about full-day kindergarten, it makes sense to me. I think it's something that Hempfield needs to do and something that this board should support. But that said, and as Mrs. Johnston alluded to, we don't live in a world of limitless resources. And if this board is going to make a commitment to this very worthwhile, but not inconsequentially expensive program, we need to figure out where those dollars are coming from. And how do we harmonize that with some of the other challenges that we have, which include an expensive building campaign? And how do we perhaps value engineer that building campaign to provide the resources for full-day kindergarten? I was struck as I was looking through the presentation, the cost to implement this will be about $1 million a year. And thinking back to our last meeting, that's about the cost of a snack bar at the high school stadium. So I'm not saying that it's not nice to have a snack bar at the stadium, but maybe that's an example of where we can make some choices.
Priorities. It's always
Thank
priorities.
you. Yes. And just to, I want to be crystal clear, because what Dr. Dandridge showed in terms of cost only factored in teachers, the paraprofessionals, transportation,
Curricular supplies.
in curricular supplies. It did not account for the bigger picture of additional reading specialists, speech, special ed, those are all things we have to look at. So that initial, think of it as kind of like the starting point. And then as we work through a plan, that number will rise because we will have to have other ancillary supports that are necessary for the kids. Because now you're basically expanding the needs in a given day. Versus right now, you have a group that comes in and leaves, and then the reading specialist can go in later and work with another group. They're going to be there all day. And so now you're going to have, in the span of a day, all the kindergartners plus all the other students, and they're going to need those services, and they're going to have to get them when they need them.
Could potentially, though, having full day kindergarten and a really strong EDK program save some money long run
Yes.
in that those services, if done well, and then
1000%.
Okay, great.
It just takes a little
Great.
time.
I know.
But yes, you are spot on.
So is there, Dr. Danner's very thorough review? I think the second to last slide or the last slide, the second to last, future, options for additional classrooms. Are we going to continue to pursue? You had a lot of ideas, but are we going to continue to pursue those ideas and maybe come up with the best ones? Is that the next steps?
That will be one of our goals next year.
Putting a plan together.
Because we may find some things that kind of come out and say, wow, this makes the most sense cost-wise, functional-wise. And so over the next, 3 or 4 months, you're going to continue to look at that?
Yeah, I would say into the fall, I'm sure we'll have some of those conversations. Right now, we're going to focus on implementing option 3 successfully. There's a lot of work to do there to be prepared for a successful start of next year. But we're going to be having these conversations in parallel, and we'll be bringing back a plan to the board.
Is there any other direction or anything from us that you need in the meantime to roll forward with those longer term plans?
Your questions around the table are helpful as we, hear what your direction is, as we start to plan. Nothing tangible that I need tonight.
Okay.
And I'm not hearing any objections, so we will, at this
Go.
point, pursue and move with option 3. And you'll approve all those
Mhm.
positions when we have the budget to you. So again, they're still it's not new, but we'll bring it back to you. That's when you do the formal approval. So
Excellent.
Yeah, and I echo what Mrs. Eshelman said. This may help our students long-term. We saw a former student get up and talk today. I think there's opportunities which will help our kids. So this seems to be very important.
Anyone else about the kindergarten program? want to say growth and expansion is always a challenge. It's a challenge for the leaders, for our leadership. And I think, I know we have kindergarten teachers because I talked to some of them when we first presented that they're like gun ho. What else can we do? So this is, it's like laying down the gauntlet of a challenge. Well, how do we make this happen? And I personally believe you can make this happen in a timely way. I think we can come up with the money. I think we can come up with the space. Because we have a lot of really smart, creative people, and some of them are sitting in this room, and some of them maybe they're listening on Zoom. But I trust that you'll get it done, because that's what we're all about here in the end, is providing a good education for our students. And with that, if
I
no
do
one
have
has
one other
anything
idea.
else- What?
I have one other idea. This is also maybe a crazy one, but
Crazy work
Could-
sometimes.
what's that?
Crazy work sometimes.
Yeah. Temporary classrooms.
Oh my
Is
God.
that an opportunity to implement this quicker? I know they're not popular, but does that mean we get full day kindergarten maybe a year earlier or 2 years earlier? Is that a potential idea? Did you think of that or?
We'll explore all options.
Okay.
I'll put that in there. I think that we can do better than that, but
Yep.
right, we
Yeah.
will put it on the planning as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think, anyone else? Crazy ideas, good ideas, possible ideas? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And now turn it over to Mr. Keener.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Johnston. The policy portion of the meeting should be relatively brief, but we've received some requests to do a brief recess, so we'll stand in recess until 6:15 and then come back for policy. All right, welcome back, everyone. We'll proceed into the policy, personnel, and legal portion of tonight's meeting. As we discussed at the beginning, we pulled policy 005 and deferred it to April so we can obtain additional information, which brings us to policy 236-1, threat assessment. Dr. Musser.
Perfect. Thank you. So as I shared in the beginning, a spring cleaning of policies, some things I've been holding on to. We're going to take a little break from the 600s in April, though. We will finish up with all of the finance policies, and then we'll be moving into the 700s property, along with some of those other policies that are still out in the works, including some of the drug test policies that we discussed, AI presentations, along with some sample policies, are all things that are still in the works and coming down the lane. So with that teaser said, for future meetings, 236-1 is threat assessment. Threat assessment is going to fall under those categories where anytime that there is a suggested revision, I'm going to get it in front of the board. It is an area of focus for not only the state, but school districts all over the nation, really focusing on keeping our schools safe for all students. We made a couple small changes here on their suggestions by PSBA. A lot of them we were already doing, but they did codify an actual policy. For example, the big highlighted paragraph you see in front of you is the training piece that we were already completing. Bill Gleason, our safety and security coordinator, is doing a large part of that for the district. So that's the only major change. The other change is you'll see at the bottom of the policy, they're taking out police language and they're starting to sub that out with law enforcement because there's different agencies now we're working with and responding. It's a little bit broader. I had an astute board member find some police language in one of our other policies. I'll be suggesting that I make some changes while they're not, it's not documented in the policy, but that's pretty much it for the changes to threat assessment.
All right. Any questions or comments about the proposed revision to 236.1? Particularly from our
Was the
astute
yellow
board member
section
who is an
new?
expert in these matters.
Yellow section, yes, the yellow section is new, and that's the provide the mandatory training. Basically, it says I'm going to follow the law. A little bit redundant, but it's there.
So the one question I have regarding that, our teachers are going to be trained. Are they comfortable with making some of those assessments, i.e. they could get in trouble with a student's parents for saying maybe they think they're in danger?
A large part of the teacher responsibility really is just identification and notification for the team to go ahead and complete the assessment. Something that we have in place this year is we also have a team of us that meet every other Monday, and we read every assessment to make sure that if it needs to go outside of the district, if we need additional help, different services, that we can make those connections. It also helps us keep a number on the keep an eye on the number we're receiving. And what's most importantly is if we're seeing repeat threat assessments from an individual student to that might actually alert child find or another responsibility of the district.
So we think this training is going to help maybe identify more than we have in the past?
We're already doing training.
Yeah.
Oh, we're already doing,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
never mind, never mind.
Yep.
And have we
Mr.
had?
Barber?
Most of this is all through their education, correct, in college. Like this is all stuff that they learn as far as behavior and looking out for identifying some of the basic stuff and then we build upon.
I would like to say that they get a lot of this in their preparatory program, but that's not the case.
Mrs. Eshelman?
I was just shaking my head, no. No,
Or what she said.
no, but that's why we have continuing education for teachers because there's always something.
And this comes back, the state requires the mandated
required.
training.
Required.
And so we fulfill those requirements. We do them yearly for all of our staff. And so again, it's not our teachers or it's not a custodian, for example, doing the threat assessment. Their job is to spot it, try and intervene at the moment, respond and report it. And so once it gets reported, there's a building team and then a district team, and that building team works on the threat assessment at the building level, and then they submit it after it's done to the district team, and then we review it as well. And so we have kind of a check and balance there.
Has this been successful in the past? Have we headed off some tough situations?
Yeah, and so it's been in place now for 2 years here, 3 years. So
Through the training requirement, 2 years, but the threat assessment a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other question? Yes,
Two,
Mr.
three.
Wang.
No, just want to make sure it's 2 years. right?
3 years.
2 years.
No, 3 years. Training assessment was later.
We can get little cards and like hold up with
Yeah.
numbers if that's easier.
Long day.
Any other questions or comments about 236-1? All right, we'll go ahead and move that one to first reading. Policy 239 is being brought back at the request of the board, if you'll recall. That dealt with some of the procedures around foreign exchange students, how we were classifying them for administrative purposes, as well as what activities they would be able to participate in, including or not commencement, things like that. So with that, Dr. Musgrove, I think the board will want to discuss this a little bit.
Sure. First off, I just want to apologize for my absence. Was not planning on becoming ill and missing the meeting, so apologize for that. Thank you for carrying on without me. The red language that we have here really does capture the essence of what administration is seeking. There is a lot of requirements for seniors in the state of Pennsylvania, even with the exchange process, that makes it cumbersome for administration. So the high school principals really wanted to make sure that for administrative purposes, all our exchange students are 11th grade in our system. It helps both parties actually at the end of the day. Then the conversation came up, we want to make sure that they get full access to the American experience, if you will. And then the conversation was really around what does graduation mean and or not mean. There are some, depending on the student exchange organization, like they don't have them participate anyhow. So there's some questions about what direction the board would like to go there. I will give where Dr. Brossman's head's at, as he's unable to be here tonight. He would like the ability to acknowledge those students in either the end of the year picnic or something that is respectful, that he works out even with the exchange organization, maybe ahead of even the acceptance. But as far as the graduation process with them not being dressed and some of the other things that come with that, he would not be in favor of them going through the formal graduation process.
Did he give a reason why?
Just those, well, he also
Like
gave
parading or walking is okay. I mean, where does he draw the line?
So his biggest concern from the last meeting was there are students that are in our halls every day for 12, 13 years plus that don't get enough and don't get that experience. And there's a student that comes in and gets that experience just because of their status as an exchange student. I know previously it had to do with some of our attendance when we were at facilities that had limits in attendance, and that was a consideration as well. But we also had a lot more exchange students back then.
The student that does not get to participate after 12 or 13 years, what's the reasoning behind why they don't get to participate?
Sometimes it's something as simple as one class. Like one of our most common short-term failures right at the end is dual enrollment. There's a student that is right on track to graduate. They take a dual enrollment college class where it is a college class. They don't pass that class. It's a required class. They have to go to summer school. I can't call and argue on their behalf because it is a college course.
So I guess where my head's at, and I'm not an educator. I'm with Dr. Brossman on end of the year picnics, things like that. If a student, listen, if I go through 13 years of school and I don't pass a course, yeah, I get why I wouldn't get a diploma and walk at my graduation. If I do and I meet all requirements, I should be able to. For a foreign exchange student, for me, as long as they're there meeting requirements, do they get a diploma? No. Can they walk? In my mind, I don't see why they couldn't. I don't see why they couldn't walk with their class. That's where I stand. I wouldn't want to keep them away from that.
Mrs. Brady?
I think I'm sort of in the middle. I think they should be invited to attend graduation. We have the room, I believe, especially now that we're back in the stadium. Definitely offer them an invitation to attend and experience what an American graduation ceremony is. But I do believe that that is meant for the kids that have met all the requirements of our school district for requirement. And therefore, I don't think those kids they haven't met all the requirements of graduation. And so I think bring them, have them, invite them, but I don't see them marching and walking across the stage.
And they may And they may not want to, but they may want to be there in support of
Yeah.
the friends they've made, the connections
Exactly.
they've made and the
Yeah.
experience.
And that's fair. Some don't, and some aren't here depending on when our graduation date is. So that's all, those are all relative.
They should be.
Would
invited.
you, just so that I think everyone fully understands what you're suggesting, Mrs. Brady, you're suggesting that they not walk, they not process, we don't call their name, but would there be a point in the ceremony where presumably the high school principal, since he is normally the MC of the ceremony, would ask them to stand and be recognized or something? Is that like,
I'd have to think more about that. I don't know that I'm opposed to that, although they are generally younger and not of the senior class age. And so they probably are going to be doing more of their things, I believe. I could be wrong with the juniors and the things that are typical of the junior class. So maybe it is more appropriate to do something within the building where the rest of the student body is there.
I don't disagree. I mean, if you're a 15-year-old sophomore, yeah, you probably shouldn't walk with the seniors. I would agree, right? If you're an 18-year-old exchange student that's gone through and received the credits that you've received, I guess I'm missing something, right? Like
If
what am I
they're,
missing?
most of our exchange students, if not all, correct me if I'm wrong, when they go back to their home country, they complete yet another year of schooling. So this does not end their schooling career, their high schooling career. They finish it in their home country.
And some, I could, from having one from Spain.
Mr. Donato, could you?
Having a foreign exchange student from Spain a while ago, Mr. Morrissey's exactly right. She had to go and go back and finish her senior year there.
I think it's a great thing to have the high school administration determine the best way to honor the students. And having language, participate in events of other this nature, like leave it to the high school administration to figure out the best way based on the students they have at that year at that time is my.
That could change, depends on what students they have or the culture, things like that, depends on what they want to be involved in, what they don't. I think of the vague language in a way is the better way to it. So we involve them as much as possible and we let the details of what it is up to administration.
I'm fine with that.
So we never have seniors that are foreign exchange students. Because I think back in my day, we did.
Yes, you would have.
Okay.
And we did like 10, 15 years ago. And that was something where they still didn't get a diploma, but they did get like a flag and they were acknowledged as they were actual seniors. But that's, as education is changing, that's just not what we're seeing. Moving forward.
And we could still give them a certificate of attendance.
We can do, yeah.
Event.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can certainly do all those things and senior picnic acknowledgement or something on the morning show as they leave. That's the other thing is it provides us with some flexibility because they all come and leave at different times.
Any additional comments on 239? Okay, so are we comfortable, is everyone comfortable with basically the spirit behind the red language, and then we'll ask the administration to codify that, and we'll move it to first reading based on that? All right. Let's go to 247 hazing.
Right. So much like cyberbullying and the bullying policy, which I bring in front of the year, that's actually required by law to be in front of you every 3 years. Hazing is one of those policies I also bring to you every 3 years, somewhere in that ballpark, to make sure that it's on the forefront. It's also one of those things, then we make sure that the coaches are aware of our hazing practices. This is a policy where you will see police language in there. So with the permission of the board, as long as there's not other wholesale changes that they'd like to see, I would like to make those small adjustments just to law enforcement and then move it to whatever reading the board determines appropriate. One of the other things I'll mention at this point, due to the uncertainty of Title IX and Title IX's implication on this policy, if there are substantive changes in Title IX, this policy will have to come back in front of the board as there are Title IX linkages to the hazing policy.
Any concerns about 247? There are no recommended changes So we would move this directly to second reading unless the board would like to change something.
It probably doesn't matter. This is probably irrelevant. So forgive the following, but like, as I read this, should it say, number 4, right? Under definitions, endure brutality of mental nature, including activity adversely affecting mental health or dignity, yada, yada. Should it say, including, but not limited to? Again, maybe something minor, maybe something simple, maybe something slight. But if you say including, people will be like, oh, okay, well, what I just did doesn't include that. I'm good. If it's including but not limited to, suddenly it broadens it out a little bit to any kind of bullying activity that's unwelcome.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely cleans up, that's our application of it, but from a definition standpoint and making it in line with our application, I can gladly make that change if the board's okay with still moving that through with that minor revision.
Any other comments? All right,
excuse me, Mr.
with
King?
that suggestion, I'm sorry, Mr. Brady.
That same type of change then to number 3 as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say anywhere where that would apply. I think, Mrs. Brady, right? Would you agree? I mean, anywhere that applies, yeah, toss it in. Yeah, for sure, included. Thank you.
All right, with those changes, de minimis changes, we'll move it directly to second reading. All right. Moving right along, 8052, school security personnel.
So this is a brand new policy, similar in nature to some of the changes that I suggested under the threat assessment. It kind of codifies district practice and already what we're doing, some of what we're required to do under Act 44 and the safety pieces. It says obviously you have to have a safety coordinator, who the safety coordinator oversees, what practices they'll be using. One of the things I do want to mention is you'll see some of these policies with the brackets and the X's. I've been having problems formatting with some of those X's and things going back and forth. So if you have any questions, give me a call. We want to get those cleared up. But you can see that all those things will be included in the actual policy. When you're voting on the policy, you should be able to see a cleaner copy of those. So it does address what we have as far as school resource officers, which is what we have. There are schools that do have actual police forces that work directly with the schools. That is not something we currently do. We also don't currently allow for our security personnel to carry weapons. The reason I'm bringing that up is that is part of this policy. This policy, in full disclosure, is constructed to reflect our current practice. So if it's something the board wishes to maneuver or change at some point, it does have the ability to do that. The only other thing I wanted to draw your attention to with this new policy is at the very bottom under where it talks about our security guards, which again I normally don't, this is policy, I normally stick to business, but our whole security team has just done an amazing job this year, building relationships. Charles, to your point, identifying kids that are quiet or no one's sitting with them at the lunch table and going up, like doing all those little extra things that you're not going to see in this policy, but is really the climate builders that Mr. Gleason's working with to hire and build up from within. And now that they're out in the middle schools, we're just really seeing the effects of those changes. So thank you for that support. And I just wanted to let you know that they're doing an amazing job.
Well said.
The other part is at the very bottom there is just that, we can enter into a MOU with our local municipality as we see fit if we want to make changes. This is one of the unique policies where I did actually have to fill in who is actually providing our SRO, as it is East Hempfield. So that's why you'll see a direct police reference when in other times I'm pulling police out. So I wanted to call attention to that in continuity.
And those MOUs are updated every 2 years unless we have a change. And so in addition to the regular MOUs with East Hempfield, West Hempfield, and Northern Regional, we have an MOU with East Hempfield for the SRO program, which is, we just updated that because of the addition of Officer Brown coming to us with the middle school. So that's why that was changed. So we maintain all of those. And they're just every 2 years.
The verbiage security guard, because we're not really, we've changed it more to your point of support, trying to identify things, everything else. The guard makes it sound very militaristic.
Yep.
Is there another word we can use to make it
I was hoping personnel,
Yeah. Security
I like that
personnel,
better.
something, I just think that.
safety and security
our
personnel.
culture is not for the security office is not a negative. It's
Correct.
very supportive,
Correct.
constructive, that type of thing. So is there something else we can put in there?
Yeah, we can certainly, it is one of the things that I had Mr. Gleason read over the entire policy because I really didn't want to, while some of it is requirements that we're performing, I didn't want it to undo some of the culture that he's creating, the perception of these people by making them look like more security than what some of the work that they're doing, because they're doing great things for kids. So we can certainly take a look at that and make a suggestion.
Does Mr. Gleason have any concerns whatsoever with
He does
this
not.
policy and its current?
He does not, and I should thank you, Mr. Keener, for bringing that. Also, same with the threat assessment. Why I know we already moved on. He is obviously in full favor of that as well. I ran both policies past him.
Okay, any other questions or comments about 8052? All right, since it's a new policy, it needs to go through the full process, so we will move that to first reading.
That'll give you time to look at the language that we changed for the security guards as well. And if there's concerns, we can stop it and pull it and go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, 824, maintaining professional adult student boundaries. Dr. Munn.
Yes, again, a policy I like to put in front of the board every so often. This is a policy that for those of you that have been a part of the board for an appreciable period of time, if you remember, we made a lot of adjustments to the PSBA version to really reflect what was the desire for our teachers, because we understand the importance of building relationships and sharing pieces, but yet we also know that there's a line there that we need to be careful with. So this is a policy, not suggesting any changes. Again, a policy I want to put in front of the board to see if the board has any changes in direction. And then, I thought that was me. And then a policy we want to get out in front of our staff again. Like, this is just a very important topic for public ed right now, along with some of this hazing, some of this bullying, the threat assessment pieces. These are things we want to keep on the front burner for school districts.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns about policy 824? Again, there are no recommended changes. All right, seeing none, we will move 824 directly to second reading. That concludes the policy portion of the agenda. Immediately following this adjournment of this meeting, the board will adjourn into executive session for a contractual matter. That meeting will be held in this room, so we will ask anyone not involved with that contractual matter to depart the room immediately upon adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session? Is there a second?
I don't know who got the first.
Wait, I heard Mr. Wagner.
I'm second then.
And wait, who was it?
I was first, he was second.
Okay, Mr. Maris was second. Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment? Opposed? We are adjourned.